Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. We are into college football week 11, and it is MACtion time. It's that time of year. We're into November, which means we got MAC games on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights. Got two of them here. Gonna go through them both. Let's do it.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
First up, we got Bowling Green on the road at Central Michigan. Central Michigan catching 13.5 points at home, total sitting at 48.5. So let's get into the matchup, and we'll start with the Bowling Green offense. So far, they've been strong this year. Passing attack looks great with Connor Bazelak, 47th in yards per pass attempt, 31st in success rate per dropback, 54th in effective pass. Run game hasn't really been there. There's been a couple games where the run game showed up, but for the most part, this offense relies on Connor Bazelak throwing the football. So how does that match up against Central Michigan? Well, Central Michigan doesn't have the strongest defense. 96th in yards per play allowed, 67th in success rate. Against the pass, 104th in yards per pass attempt, 53rd in success rate per dropback, 118th in effective pass. Central Michigan defensively sitting at 118th in DFEI. So this is not a great defense. If you look at the numbers from their last 6 games, you can see this team does struggle to defend the pass. 243.5 passing yards per game, 43.9% success rate per dropback, 8.45 yards per pass attempt. Now you might be looking at these thinking, Kyle, that's not absolutely terrible. It's really not that bad. And that's true. I mean, these aren't the worst numbers in the world. But when you look at the opponents, I mean, Illinois, okay, with Altmaier, Ball State, San Diego State's been throwing the ball a little bit, Ohio, Eastern Michigan, Miami of Ohio. I mean, these aren't the toughest opponents, still struggling to defend the pass. So Connor Bazelak and Bowling Green, a legitimate MAC passing attack, they should be able to throw the ball on this Central Michigan defense. Also, it's nice to see that Bazelak has not had problems throwing the ball on the road this year. In their 4 road games, they're averaging 239.8 passing yards per game, 46.9% success rate per dropback, 7.2 yards per pass attempt. And you might be thinking these aren't that great. Look at the opponents. At Penn State, at Texas A&M, and then Akron and Toledo, okay. But Bazelak went on the road to Penn State, on the road to Texas A&M, and was able to make some throws. So this is a legitimate passing attack, like I said, should be able to throw the ball on Central Michigan. Now, when it comes to the Bowling Green rushing attack, not really sure if we can count on it being there. I mean, I know they showed up last week on the road in Toledo, 215 yards on the ground, 5.81 yards per carry, 47.1% success rate per rush. They ran the ball all over Toledo. But in the 4 games before that, the rushing attack was just not there for Bowling Green. Just 2.97 yards per carry, 41.5% success rate per rush. And it's not like they went through the gauntlet. I mean, Old Dominion has a solid defense. Northern Illinois, it's a pretty good defensive front. Kent State, Akron. I mean, Bowling Green doesn't have a run game I really trust. They have Bazelak and a passing attack. That's what that offense is. I don't know if I really trust the run game. Now, that's not to say they won't be able to run the ball at all. I mean, like I said earlier, Central Michigan's defense is not great. In their last home game, Ohio ran for 283 on them. So this is not a great defense. So maybe Bowling Green is able to run the ball a little bit. But as a whole, this is not a great rushing attack. This is an offense that needs to throw the ball. And they should definitely be able to do so on Central Michigan's defense. But what about on the other side? Let's talk about the Central Michigan offense. And unlike Bowling Green, this is an offense that needs to run the ball. They're 33rd in rushing frequency so far this year. And luckily for Central Michigan, that actually plays into the weakness of this Bowling Green defense. Bowling Green defensively has been great this year, 46 in yards per play, 31st in success rate, 46th in PPA. Look at the run defense numbers. 96 in yards per carry allowed, 60th in success rate per rush, 88th in effective rush against a Central Michigan offense that lives and dies by the run. Not a great start here for Bowling Green. But as I mentioned before, Bowling Green had 2 road games early in the season at Penn State and at Texas A&M. Obviously, games like that could skew the numbers. So if you take those 2 out and just look at the last 5 games since those 2 games, 141 rushing yards allowed per game, 39% success rate per rush, 4.41 yards per carry. So Bowling Green's defense against the run, I mean, maybe not quite as bad as the season-long numbers indicate, but they're still vulnerable. I mean, these games were against Old Dominion. That was before the quarterback changed to Colton Joseph when they couldn't move the ball at all. Akron, Northern Illinois, okay, that's a legitimate rushing attack. Kent State, Toledo, I mean, Toledo's all right. So, I mean, you can run the ball on this Bowling Green defense. And if you look at the numbers from the last 5 games, it looks like Central Michigan has this dominant rushing attack, 5.34 yards per carry, over 208 rushing yards per game, over 45% success rate per rush. So you might be looking at this like, okay, Central Michigan can run the ball in this game, but Numbers are a little bit skewed. They went absolutely nuclear against Ball State and Eastern Michigan, 310 rushing yards per game, over 7.9 yards per carry. In their other 3 games, San Diego State, Ohio, Miami of Ohio, just 140 rushing yards per game, 3.6 yards per carry. So they went absolutely nuts a couple times, skewing the rushing numbers a little bit. That being said, I mean, Ohio, very tough defensive front. Miami of Ohio, very tough defensive front. San Diego State, not so much. 2 of these games were against some tougher defensive fronts. Bowling Green, as we just talked about, they're vulnerable to the run. So I do think Central Michigan at home will be able to run the ball on Bowling Green in this game. The problem with Central Michigan's offense is they have no passing attack whatsoever, and I mean it doesn't even exist. In their last 3 games, they're averaging 97 passing yards per game, 32.4% success rate per dropback, 5.93 yards per attempt. Now, the reason for that, because of injuries, they are now down to their 3rd string quarterback, a freshman named Tyler Jefferson, who's starting in this game. On the season, 280 yards, 5.5 yards per attempt, no touchdowns and an interception, F QB rating. So when I tell you Central Michigan does not have a passing attack, that doesn't even describe it. I mean, they have no passing attack at all. They have to run the ball. So you might be thinking, all right, well, let's go lay the 13.5 with Bowling Green then. Well, hold on. Look at the weather report at Central Michigan in this one. Very good chance of rain, 13, 14 mile an hour winds, affects the passing attack. So we might be looking at a nasty weather game here where the home team's catching 2 touchdowns and wants to run the ball against the road team laying 2 touchdowns who wants to throw the ball. I don't know. I kind of like it. It might be a sneaky little spot for Central Michigan. Not to mention this team plays so much better at home. In the last 2 seasons, Central Michigan 7-2 at home, 1-10 on the road. Central Michigan, a sneaky good home team. Throw the weather report in there, the Tuesday night MAC craziness. I'm doing it. I'm on the Chippewas here. Central Michigan plus 14 next game. Next up, we got the Red Hawks on the road at Ball State. Ball State catching 12 points at home, total sitting at 48 or 47.5, depending on your sports book. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Ball State defense. These numbers are disgusting. 130th in DFEI, 134th, dead last in yards per play, 130th in yards per carry allowed, 131st in yards per pass attempt allowed. These numbers are terrible here for Ball State's defense. Now, we do have to mention, though, that they're definitely playing much better as of late. In their first 3 FBS games against Miami, Central Michigan, and James Madison, they're allowing 54 points per game, over 9.5 yards per play. That's just crazy. But in their 4 games since then, they're allowing 31.8 points per game, 6.4 yards per play, 44.9% success. I mean, these still aren't good, but they're not nearly as bad as those first few games, maybe skewing the numbers. And there's some decent offenses in here. Western Michigan's a solid MAC offense. Kent State's pretty terrible. But Vanderbilt, obviously great offense, or at least by MAC standards. Northern Illinois, great MAC offense. So they're playing much better. Look, this isn't a good defense, but you look at the numbers in the beginning, you're like, oh, this might be the worst defense in the country. That's not the case. They're playing much better than that. There's a problem, though. They're matched up against Miami of Ohio's offense, and the Red Hawks seem to have figured it out. Through their first 5 games, granted, they played Northwestern, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, then UMass and Toledo. But those first 3 games, brutal schedule for Miami of Ohio. But through 5 games, they're averaging just 13.6 points per game, 5 yards per play. It was looking bad. Look at their last 3 games. 38 points per game, over 8 yards per play, 47.8% success rate. So this Miami of Ohio offense definitely seems to be finding its groove. They've been playing very well the last few games. Now, the weather here in Indiana, not quite the same as the other game. Looks like it's supposed to start raining later, 8:30, 9 p.m., which would put it about halftime. So obviously weather's a situation in this one as well. But straight up, if the weather's all right here, Miami of Ohio should have no problem moving the ball and scoring points on Ball State. I know Ball State's defense has been playing better recently, but this Miami of Ohio offense with Gabbert, I mean, experienced quarterback, probably one of the better quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the conference. They're just on a different level, talent-wise. So Miami of Ohio, as long as the weather's okay, should have no problem scoring points on Ball State in this one. But what about the matchup on the other side? Let's take a look at the Ball State offense. And actually, this is not a bad offense. They're coming along. These numbers, kind of like their defensive numbers, a little bit skewed. They look terrible to start the season. They're 117th in yards per play, 116th in yards per carry, 113th in yards per pass attempt. Obviously, that's terrible looking, but just like their defense, if you take a closer look, it's not that bad. Through their first 4 games, they're averaging just 20.8 points per game, 4.42 yards per play. In their last 4 games, they're averaging just under 30 points per game, 5.59 yards per play, success rate over 47%. So this Ball State offense has actually been functioning. That actually looks all right in the last 4 games. Granted, Western Michigan, solid offense, not a good defense. Kent State, obviously terrible. But Northern Illinois, that's a solid defense. Vanderbilt. So this Ball State offense deserves some credit. They're not nearly as bad as the numbers indicate. Entering the season, I did not even know Caden Samanza existed. I thought Kyle Kelly was coming back to be the quarterback. He took over last year. I mean, he's still on the team and he sees the field sometimes, but this kid Samanza is the quarterback. He looks all right. Ball State is a pass-first offense, and it's really not bad. 1,779 yards, 6.6 yards per attempt, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. D, big-time throw rate. So not a ton of downfield passes, but A- turnover-worthy play rate. Kid protects the football. But here's the problem for Ball State's offense. They're matched up against the Red Hawks. This was one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the conference last year. Looks to be some of the same this year. They had that one bad game, week 6, on the road at Toledo. Gave up 318 passing yards in the game, 51.5% success rate per dropback. They lost that game 30-20. Look at the 3 games since then. They're allowing just 13.7 points per game. 3.7 yards per play is crazy. 3.7 yards per play. Starting to look like the Red Hawks defense of last year that led them to the conference championship. They beat Toledo in the MAC championship game. Really coming into form here defensively. Remember, they had 2 all-conference inside linebackers return this year. So no surprise that this defense is elite again. So even though the Ball State offense isn't nearly as bad as their numbers indicate, don't like this matchup for them at all. And I mentioned before how Ball State is an offense that wants to throw the ball with Samanza. Well, good luck trying to throw the ball in this one. In their last 3 games, Miami of Ohio is allowing just 151.3 passing yards per game, 35% success rate per dropback, just 4.27 yards per pass attempt. And yeah, one of those games was against Central Michigan, who only wants to run the ball. In fact, they have no passing attack at all. We just talked about that. But Eastern Michigan has Cole Snyder at quarterback. Miami of Ohio went on the road to Eastern Michigan, had Cole Snyder in prison. Also, they played Ohio. Parker Navarro, I'm pretty sure he got benched in the game. That's how ineffective he was. So yeah, this defense is official, and I'm sure we'll find opportunities to buy low on this Ball State team because I think offensively and defensively, they're better than their numbers indicate, but this is not the matchup for it. So I'm leaning towards Miami of Ohio in this one. I like them to score points. Miami of Ohio minus 11.5 on the road sounds crazy. Probably can't bet that because of the weather question marks, but that's the side I want to be on. Miami of Ohio minus 11.5. You know what? Because the rain's not supposed to start till later in this one, why don't we go Miami of Ohio first half minus 6.5? I haven't bet it yet. I'll let you know on the live show if I do it, but for the video, that's my pick. Miami of Ohio, first half, minus 6.5. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through these 2 games. There's no NBA on because of the election, but maybe some college basketball we'll go through. So if you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you want to go see all the bets I have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. Also, if you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. So if you're interested in that, head over to the website and sign up. Let's have ourselves a good one. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.